Mrs. Donald Tsang to the podium. First of all, may I ask Mr. Donald Tsang to give an address. Mr. Tsang, please. Please, can our photographers be seated? The State Council called a meeting this morning and approved my appointment as the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. I will fly to Beijing shortly and be formally sworn in. I am appointed by the Central People's Government. I must first of all thank the Central People's Government for their support. I fully accept this as a heavy responsibility. In the 2 years of the remaining term, I will do my best as the Chief Executive. I will not let the Central People's Government down. In the past 3 weeks, I have lobbied intensively in the election campaign. This is a new experience for me, and I have deep feelings. I've experienced deep feelings there. The members of the election committee gave me the support. I also had the chance to talk to people of Hong Kong at different districts. I fully came to realize the expectations brought about by the election, and I've also experienced firsthand the encouragement of the public. I have done a lot of soul-searching after the election. And when I faced the questions of members of the election committee, I answered every question with trepidation, because every word I said would be translated into election pledges, and they must be implemented in the next 2 years. I went to different districts and communities to reach out to people of Hong Kong that gave me other feelings. Over 20 years ago, I was the Sha Tin district officer. I was involved in district work. I remember then I started the dragon boat race as part of the district festival activities. This year, at the turning point of my life, it so happened it's also Dragon Boat Festival. I see Hong Kong, this dragon boat, striving very hard to make progress. It has great potential to be exploited, and is starting to soar. And I'm fortunate to be a member of the crew on this dragon boat. And I look forward to working together with people of Hong Kong. Earlier, as the Chief Executive election candidate, I visited different districts and came in touch with different walks of life. I reached out to the community. Members of the public greeted me with enthusiasm. They talked to me and they said they supported me, and that was most warming. It was like I was just going back home to the days when we together weathered the many storms. I fully realized the challenges ahead as the Chief Executive. Without the support of the people of Hong Kong, without the support of the Central People's Government, I would have nothing. Without the guidance of the public, I would lose my way. I remember when I visited the Amoy Gardens, there was a young lady in her teens who greeted me. She came over to shake my hand. But then the photographer next to me held up his camera to take picture, and she was frightened and she just ran away. Afterwards, she wrote to me and said she actually supported me a lot, but she blamed herself for being so shy, and she hoped there would be other chance to meet me again. So how can we say Hong Kong people are indifferent? It was in that brief moment that I came in contact with her, I felt that people were kind and caring. And I am sure with the broad support of the public, I would not be alone. It was just a chance encounter I had with this young lady. I believe she doesn't just support me personally. She supports the current SAR government, and she supports our civil servant, and she supports our common goal, which is a better tomorrow. In those brief visits I made to the different districts, I found that people from all walks of life in Hong Kong are all working very hard. They have no complaints about life. They are full of optimism about the future. When I visited welfare agencies, I found many, after receiving assistance, became volunteers themselves and turn around to help others in need. Hong Kong people never say die. Hong Kong people help each other out in the long journey of life. That's an apt reflection of our fighting spirit and our caring for each other.
During the election campaign, I was lucky enough to meet people from all sectors. I visited people from all walks of life, of all ages, of all occupations. They are toiling hard, patiently and quietly on the front line. They're key members of the community. They talk to me about the difficulties and limitations they face. This reinforces my resolve to work hard for them. In my contact with people of all walks of life, they bring across a message, and that is they hope that the government will listen to their aspirations and act boldly and preserve the core values that they uphold and help them to resolve the difficulties that they face in their day-to-day life. In my contact with people of all walks of life, they project a portrait that they are pragmatic, reasonable, and compassionate. They are remarkable Hong Kong people. They don't expect the government to resolve all the problems for them. All they want is for the government to create an environment for them to resolve the problems. This is the remarkable Hong Kong people's spirit, which should be upheld. When someone starts learning, one realizes how inadequate one is. In my contact with the people of Hong Kong, I realize my limitations. When I sit in contemplation, I find that this experience has been rewarding. I realize that the SARG has massive responsibility. We have to act on our words. We have to create a good social economic condition for people to work and live happily in. I'm grateful to the election committee members' support and also the endorsement of the members of the public. But I realize that there are many inadequacies on my part. With modesty and with concrete action, I seek to consolidate my support and seek to bring together citizens holding different views in the overall interest of Hong Kong. We have to strengthen governance on the basis of public opinion. We have to act in the interest of the public. I would bear firmly in mind the views that I heard during the election campaign and use it as a compass for governance. I would have the public interest uppermost in my mind and use it as a rudder for my governance. I undertake that I will be continuing with dialogues with people of all walks of life and go down to the different districts to meet the public to understand their aspirations so that the robust dragon boat can forge ahead against the waves. There are lots of challenges ahead of us. We have to create a harmonious society. We have to focus our attention to develop the economy and improve the livelihood. I believe that forging ahead collectively, we can triumph all difficulties. I believe that we can create a better future and make Hong Kong a true Asian cosmopolitan and a decent home.
Earlier this morning, I was told that the Central People's Government had appointed me as the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region for the remainder of the second term. I want to thank the Central People's Government for giving me this opportunity to serve our people. I want to thank members of the Election Committee for the overwhelming support. And I want to thank members of the community for their warm endorsement of my candidacy. I will fly to Beijing shortly and be formally sworn in. I will begin to implement my program of work immediately. Humbly, I accept this responsibility, and proudly, I ask the people of Hong Kong to join me in starting a new chapter of this remarkable city that we call home. The election process has affected me deeply. I have been doing a lot of soul searching. Once the nominations closed and it became clear that I was the only eligible candidate, I began to reflect on the course of the campaign and the many lessons that I learned from directly engaging the people of Hong Kong. I have lobbied intensely over the past 3 weeks to win the nominations and support of the Election Committee. Many of the questions they asked and the opinion they offered have been insightful and valuable. I have also reached out beyond these representatives to the community at large. In our streets, our housing estates, our tea houses, our elderly homes, our typhoon shelter, all the places where my fellow citizens gather. The experience has been richly rewarding and enlightening. Talking to people in a different capacity, seeing issues from a different angle, and reassessing my own thoughts from a different perspective, all of this has been salutary and refreshing. One great privilege of standing for this election is a rare opportunity of getting out of the office, going into the streets and alleyways to listen to people's stories, their happiness, and their frustrations. The many Hong Kong stories that I've heard will serve to remind me of one important truth, that most people's concerns are honestly simple, the rough and tumble of everyday life. When I chatted with the citizens in the street, men and women, young and old, they all spoke in one voice. The message is loud and clear, that they want a government with the patience to listen, a government that is sensitive to their needs, prompt and timely in action, and capable of preserving the values and institutions that we have long treasured. These are all basic things that a government can and should offer. Collectively, the individuals that I met have provided me with a portrait of Hong Kong people. A people that are straightforward, that are reasonable, that are compassionate. They know that a government is not a solution to all of life's problems. They also understand that a good government can create an environment in which its citizens can find their own solutions, or can help each other to tackle the challenge of everyday life. But what impressed me most is a clear will of our citizens' part to make a contribution to our common good. My aim is equally simple. I want to demonstrate to the Hong Kong people that I stand ready to act in a timely way for their welfare and interests. I want to restore harmony and inclusiveness in our community. Above all, I want to give the people of Hong Kong a government that deserves their trust. I pledge that I will endeavor to deliver the modest ambitions that I promised during the election. Together, I believe we can make Hong Kong great. And together, I believe that we can make Hong Kong truly Asia's World City, a place that is second to none. Thank you very much. 多謝各位。
而家行政長官會回答大家問題。
When the Chief Executive will answer your questions, please raise your hands and you'll be handed over a microphone. And please be cooperative, one question at a time.
Thank you very much for your cooperation. 首先
First of all, second row, lady in black, please. Yes, please. Mr. Tsang, I'm from ATV. Can you confirm whether Mr. Rafael Hui is going to be the CS and how do you assess him? My first task is to accept the CPG's appointment and go through all the formalities before I appoint anybody as the CS.
I think in the third row, the second, yes.
Hello, Evan Kelsey, ATV News. Mr. Chung, what is your administration going to do to make the elections of 2007 more democratic?
We have a task force which is headed by the Chief Secretary. The task force has prepared 4 reports, and they're going to make a 5th report which will outline the improvements made to the present arrangement for the election of the Chief Executive in 2007 and the election of the Legislative Council in 2008. I'm sure the arrangements proposed would be more inclusive, more open, more democratic than the present arrangements. These will be outlined in this report and will be open for public consultation in the autumn.
Is that what you'd like to see?
One question at a time, please. Okay.
Singtao Daily, Liu Pikshan. Mr. Tsang, I am from Singtao Daily. You're going to be going to Beijing for appointment. Why are you flying with Ms. Elsie Leung, SJ, and Mr. Stephen Lam, SCA? Does it mean that there's going to be some progress in constitutional development to report on? In this election campaign, I have troubled a number of colleagues, in particular Ms. Elsie Leung, troubled her in relation to legal matters. I've also brought trouble to Mr. Stephen Lam, SCA. I meant to fly to Beijing with more colleagues. Mr. Henry Tang has to hold the fort in Hong Kong. I hope that one secretary will be accompanying me, and Ms. Elsie Leung is the right one. And prior to the election period, Mr. Stephen Lam worked with me very closely in relation to constitutional development, and I picked him. There is no particular reason. The key thing is that the whole process is going to be solemn and simple. I don't want to bring too many people together. The gentleman in blue, please. I'm from Shanghai. Some people said that Shanghai is going to be the competitor for Hong Kong in the days ahead. How do you view these particulars? One question at a time, please. And the relationship between Hong Kong and Shanghai. Shanghai is one of the biggest cities in the mainland. It is also part of Hong Kong. I believe that our country needs a lot of cities like Shanghai and Hong Kong. Hong Kong and Shanghai do make different contributions to our country. We are an international city. Hong Kong is an international city. Hong Kong is a financial center. Shanghai is an industrial city, a large international city. We can play different roles, making contribution to our country. Oriental Daily, and then Mr. Tsang, congratulations on your appointment. You said before that you would coordinate the ties between the 2 other principal secretaries and the other bureau secretaries. Would they be on the same equal footing in future? Well, the principal secretaries, the key principal secretaries, would play a significant role. The chief executive is going to be working with the 3 principal secretaries and other bureau secretaries. The FS and the CS are playing an important role. The bureau secretaries are also appointed by the CPG, they have their own respective remits. They also work closely with the chief executive. We have a clear division of work. TVB, please. Mr. Zhang, you have been elected as chief executive, and during the election period, there were some legal issues that were related to Ms. Elsie Leung and also Mr. Stephen Lam. Why are you flying with them to Beijing? Would you take this opportunity to further the bottom line of Beijing in relation to constitutional development, and would you be coming up with a mainstream model? We don't have any intention to talk about constitutional development. This is only a swearing-in ceremony. I just fly there with Ms. Leung and Mr. Lam to make me less lonely. Apple Daily, Mr. Mok, and the lady in white.
Mr. Zhang, now in one of the forums before, many members of the public asked you, taking advantage of your trip to Beijing, would you talk to them about the Xinjiang case, because you would have a chance to meet state leaders? Would you tell them that the media and the university students, many of them are very concerned about the Xinjiang case? Yes, I am fully aware of the concern of the people of Hong Kong about the Xinjiang's case. So where there's an appropriate forum, I would like to convey the concerns of people of Hong Kong. As for the specifics, I don't think this is the right forum to go into.
Current state of Hong Kong's economy and outline the toughest economic challenges for Hong Kong moving ahead. Thank you.
How much time are you going to give me to answer that question? Hong Kong is doing reasonably well. We are now in a stage of broad-based economic recovery, reflected in our volume of trade, in our internal consumption, in tourism, and in practically all aspects of our financial activities. Furthermore, our property markets, our securities market are stable. Those are also reflecting the attractiveness of Hong Kong. Liquidity remains strong. So I believe that our forecast of economic growth between 4.5% and 5.5% for this year is a reasonable one. Our challenges are many, of course. We are in a globalized economy. We face competition from all around the world, both in terms of the areas in which we can do best, like financial services, in the areas in which we have engaged heavily in the mainland, like manufacturing. But I'm sure Hong Kong people and Hong Kong investors and Hong Kong businessmen will do their very best to take on that challenge, and we are going to show forth our abilities in the process.
Okay, Carrie Chan, 然後就
Carrie Tang and then Ming Pao. Mr. Zhang, first of all, congratulations. Thank you. Now you said you are turning a new chapter for Hong Kong, but in your election platform, especially with respect to political reform, we're actually going back to the past, or we're going to the future. Well, I don't think we can stand still. We must always be forging ahead. Now our system is very different from what we had before 1997. And for the changes I plan to make and the development I plan to promote, would be very different from the Executive Council structure that Mr. Tong put in place. So this, you can regard this as the second round of the exercise in implementing the accountability system by Mr. Tong. And I've explained my thinking to people public. Seems that I have their initial support. As for the concrete reform measures, of course, I need to talk to our principal officials, senior civil servants, and members of the Legislative Council and political parties. I hope that in my policy address in October, I'll be able to give you the full blueprint. Ming Pao Chao Chin Hong. Now you said you want to create a harmonious society, but greeting you would be the July 1st protest. Now you have high popularity rating. Would you then hope that there will be fewer people taking to the streets? Well, street protest is one form of expression of opinions in Hong Kong. I think it's for individuals to decide whether they want to join the march. And it is the freedom of people of Hong Kong. It is the tradition of Hong Kong. So I'm not going to speculate how many will take to the street. But I'm sure Hong Kong people are well aware of the situation we're in now. They would fully appreciate that we are now in a stable situation, but which is quite different from what happened a year or two ago when we were subject to SARS and the financial crisis and so on. Chen Yiying. And then the lady in black sitting next to Chao Chi-hong. Mr. Tsang, Chief Executive from Cable TV, Chen Yiying. I know all along you are very concerned about civil servants. Now there is an issue of legislating for the pay reduction of civil servants. Mr. Joseph Wong said that he is putting his mind on the court case, and he would not consider whether there would be interpretation of basic law should the government lose the case. But would you make an undertaking that in your term there would be no more interpretation of the basic law? Well, interpretation of basic law is provided for in the basic law. For the SAR government, when we approach the question of interpretation of basic law, we are very prudent and cautious. You have seen how we've conducted ourselves, and so we will continue to be pragmatic in dealing with such issues. Now, Mr. Zhang Jing said even your heart has joined the motherland again, and he thinks you're a good candidate for the third term of the chief executive election. So would you consider the third term? Well, I'm only just starting the second term. I will give my best to this term of office. I'm Chinese. All know where I owe my allegiance to.
Mr. Tang, how exactly do you intend to organize your dialogue with the central government?
Sorry, I missed
Could you repeat this?
How exactly do you intend to organize your dialogue with the central government?
Well, there's a usual channels that we have with the Hong Kong Macau office. There are the various ministries with whom we work, and again through the Hong Kong Macau office. And occasionally, when I visit Beijing, I will have a chance to see the national leaders. Our channels are open. Our transactions are quite transparent. And I will continue to develop those channels. And I'm sure that by the end of my present terms, I will going to know more Central People's Government personalities than I do know now.
Okay.
Row 3. Lady in beige. Mr. Zhang. Okay, you've been appointed by the State Council today. The announcement's been made. Now, you said you wanted to improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature. You said that's one of your tasks. But only yesterday, the Democratic Party and the Liberal Party held different views from you in introducing elites to the Executive Council. They are concerned that you might belittle the role of executive members without achieving the intended purposes. And what about the estate duty case? This could happen again in future. So how do you deal with such challenges? Well, life is full of challenges. I know clearly what I intend to do. I will most definitely strengthen communication with political parties, and there should be sufficient consultation in policy formulation, and there should also be understanding. It's just the beginning. I'm sure the Democratic Party as well as the Liberal Party are all keen to serve the people of Hong Kong And that's also the aspiration of the SAL government. So we share a common goal, and I'm sure we'll be able to address a lot of the problems and sort out a lot of the differences.
Francis Moriarty, RTHK. Congratulations, Mr. Tsang, on your appointment. You said that you were very careful, you weighed every word when speaking with EC members because you knew that those words would be translated into pledges that you would have to fulfill. So what are the pledges that you have to fulfill that you've made in exchange for support for the election, and what's the priority?
One question,
it's what.
No. Well, as far as the pledges is concerned, they have been all reported clearly in our media. Because every meeting I have with them have been fully accounted for and reported fully. What is important is that I have stuck quite firmly to the manifesto, which I published for all to see. Most pledges are stemming from the statements, the undertakings I made in the manifesto itself. As regards individual undertakings, I'm sure I will be able to consult my colleagues, the principal officials, the senior civil service, and I'll be discussing with Legislative Council to set out what I believe should be Hong Kong's priorities in tackling all these pledges. And I will account for them in my policy address to be delivered in October.
Okay, 經濟.
Economic Times. I'm from Economic Times. Mr. Tsang, Chief Executive. During the election campaign, you pledged to some of the EC committees that the government headquarters are going to be put on the Tamar base, Tamar site. Is it going to be done? One question at a time, please. I did not quite make such an undertaking. All I said was that we can consider many things to increase the job opportunities in Hong Kong, in particular our investment in infrastructural development. One of the options is to build the government headquarters at the Tamar site. This can achieve a number of objectives. First, we can set aside and vacate the CGO, which is a very valuable piece of land for public use. And this would bring positive revenue to the coffers. In the course of development, we will be able to create a lot of job opportunities. And that is the jobs in the infrastructural jobs created in infrastructural development, not so much jobs in the renovation industry. And do we have difficulties in these? I mean, do we get the support of the members of the public and let's go? All these will not materialize without the support of the Finance Committee. Mr. Tsang, Gary Zhang from SCMP. When you declare your candidacy, you put down your occupation as politician. I think Dr. Raymond Wu said that you're not quite there as good as a politician. Can you, after these 2 terms, become a politician or statesman? Well, politician is the right term. I'm afraid there is no equivalent in Chinese, because in the Chinese culture, politics is viewed with a negative connotation. We don't really have to use this term today. At that time, I only had 2 choices, either politician or unemployed. I thought that unemployed wasn't quite right a term. I called myself politician. From today on, I am a public servant. I've been appointed as the chief executive of the Hong Kong SAR. I am now a public servant. The lady over there, please. RTHK Wang Pui-san, Mr. Tsang, 3 weeks ago, you resigned to declare your candidacy, and after a while you become the chief executive. Do you think that there have been any changes in political skills? I don't think the political skills have been any different. I'm getting on a bit. I don't think I can acquire any new skills. Emotionally, it has been very different. Over the past couple of weeks, I've got to see people from all walks of life, in particular people in the lower rung of the community. On an equal footing, they told me their concerns, their anxieties, their aspirations. And without any concerns for the government policies, I talked to them on equal footing and understood their concerns. I went very deep into my heart. Two things did happen. First, I would go to the heart of the public within the term of my office, and I hope that what I heard would be translated into policies. Mr. Wong Kwok Kei, Economic Daily. Mr. Tsang, when you were interviewed by the CNN, you mentioned the reform of the Committee on Strategic Development and also how you revamped the EXCO. For Hong Kong to have democracy, how soon do you think that we can achieve full democracy? Mr. Wong, let me bring out a message. Universal suffrage is enshrined in the mini constitution, and this is recognized to be the ultimate objective in constitutional development. This will not change until we get universal suffrage. Any policies to be formulated, any activities should be inclusive. So the restructuring of the Executive Council and also the widening of the function of the Commission on Strategic Development are having regard to this, so that the middle class, the professionals, the grassroots will be able to be part of the policy formulation process, so that the policies would be more reflective of public opinions. There are two objectives that can be achieved from that. First, the policies can be more readily acceptable and more solid. And in the process, we can identify political talents in Hong Kong who can be entrusted with important tasks.
各位女士啊，最後尾個位。
The lady over there.
In the Financial Times, congratulations. Mr. Zhang, as a man of the people and as you seek to consolidate your support base in society, would you consider marching on July 1st? And if not, why not?
Marching in the street to demonstrate feeling is a prerogative of Hong Kong people. I'm a Hong Kong person. I can exercise my right to do it. I can exercise my right not to do it. And that's the reason. I want to exercise my right, whatever I want to do. I have not got any particular grievance about Hong Kong. I love this place. I have no ground myself to march to demonstrate my anger. In fact, I'm a very happy man today.
最後一條問題 the
Last question. A lady in green, please. Mr. Zhang, I'm from Wanhui Bao. Many people said that you try to create a harmonious society, and many people questioned this distribution of interest approach would be able to achieve the purpose. And in absorbing the political talents, how can you please every single party? Well, there is no intention of me to distribute interests. The restructuring of EXCO and also the Commission of Strategic Development, I don't have any intention of distributing interests. All I seek to do is to open up these institutions so that people from different walks of life would be able to participate in the policy formulation process, so that our institutions can be consolidated. That remains our objective. I'm sure that with the participation of political parties, they can express the public opinions, and I'm sure that what I do, I will get their support. Thank you all very much.
多謝晒。曾生會俾大家。
Mr. Tsang will stay for photo call.
Come to. 好，前面嗰啲麻煩你好冇踎低少少啊 ，OK。前面嗰啲可唔可以麻煩你哋踎低少少？好啦，多謝晒，多謝晒。